which is 119 Cedar Lane. It's scheduled to start at 6:10, and it's about 6:07 now. What I'm going to do is read the project description, have yourself introduce yourself, and then go through the project. If you have some photographs as well, or maybe staff does, we'll review those with the project. This proposal is for a remodel and a 500 square foot second story addition for an existing 1,773 square foot single story single family residence, including an attached 383 square foot 2-car garage. The project includes a new front entry portico, 13 square foot addition to the garage, raising the roof and roof pitch, new exterior finishes, doors, windows, removing as-built storage sheds, and permitting or removing all other as-built work called out in the zoning information report. Staff hearing officer approval of modifications is requested to allow alterations to the existing house within the setbacks. The proposed total of 2,336 square feet on a 7,700 square foot lot in the Hillside Design District is 75% of the maximum FAR. This is the first time we've heard this project. It's comments only.
I'm Nathaniel Arnold.
Matthew Arnold.
Arnold Brothers Construction. We're working with Pamela Stafford and Kurt Huffman, the owners of the property, designing the project.
Thank you. So quickly go through and bring us up to speed.
What we've got, first of all, I don't know if you're familiar with the area. It's kind of a hot spot tonight. Rosemary Lane, which you guys discussed earlier, is there. This is us here.
Okay.
Cedar Lane. Let's see here. What we've got to begin with is an existing kind of rather nondescript ranch style, I guess you'd say, house. Let's go to elevation. Well, let's see. We're not doing much to the interior. We're moving much interior walls, but no dramatic increase in anything. The only square footage we're really talking about adding is a little bit in the front of the garage, which I'll show you in elevation, trying to create a little bit more interest in the front of that garage, and then a portico here. That 500 square foot addition is due to the fact that the ridge height increase in ridge height gets us over 5 feet, which I'm told counts as square footage.
It's currently 4.5 feet, so...
Let me try, can you hit that oval? There you go. Now what you were going to say?
I was just going to say that the attic is currently at 4.5 feet, so moving it up moves it over 5, and therefore it qualifies.
So we're looking to, we got an 8-foot plate now. They would like to go to a 9-foot plate to get some added volume in interior spaces, and then change roof pitch from a 4 and 12 to a 12 and 12, trying to get kind of a European cottage feel out of it.
Kind of playing off that.
One of the things, the modifications, due to the fact that we are currently encroaching in the garage and on the side of the master here, so that bump in plate height and increase in roof pitch requires modifications. We met with Roxanne. She felt it was supportable, but we're looking for comments from the board.
Okay. So this is the front, and this is what the current front looks like.
And this is incorrect. This is north elevation.
We've also got, if it's any help, so more artistic rendering.
Oh, we always love these.
So what we're looking to do is plastered exterior, a lightweight slate roof. I don't think the brick is something they're interested in. They're talking about some sort of stone detailing, but at this point, we're just trying to get
8-foot or 9-foot garages?
That's something Transportation's already made comments on. That they're right now they're shown as 8, but we need to rethink that and see if we can get 8.5, or depending on what
Okay.
we can get.
Let's look at the other elevations. So this area was going to be for that mod?
Yeah.
Because you're changing the roof and the side
Yeah,
yard setback.
and actually it is the front of that garage as well, because
Are you moving this forward?
we're bumping that out for that. Currently, it's just a single. We're looking at that.
This 12-inch little pop-out
Yeah.
thing? Okay. This is the existing back, rear elevation.
Yes.
And the height of the chimney is based upon
I'm getting you that 2 foot.
2 and 10.
Yeah.
Okay, seems pretty straightforward. Great. Okay, do you have anything else to?
Yeah, pictures.
Do you have a design book right there? Or
Did you have some you wanted to reference there? This is just some pictures of, there's a couple of these packets here.
Oh, here we go. Let's pass them out.
and then let's not move it once we have it here because the TV camera will
Great.
zoom in on it.
So that.
You want to go through them with me?
Yeah, it's pretty much explaining on the headings there. We're looking at the.
So this is the existing house, the existing hedge?
Yes. And that is, this one, we're actually looking this way down Cedar Lane.
Okay. And these are houses in the area?
Yes.
There's a variety, 2-story.
Another thing I think is worth mentioning, the finished floor, this has not been surveyed, but I got a transit out and shot. It's approximately 2 plus or minus feet below the street level in the middle of the street. The street slopes east to west to east, downward, and that's kind of the middle point there.
Oh. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Do we have these slips? Does staff have any comments on this project? Okay. I will open up public speaking. Can we have people stay? You guys can stay, but we just need that chair open. Thank you. We have several items. The first speaker will be Phil Bertrand, followed by Marianne Bertrand. So Marianne, you can actually get ready at the next seat. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Phil Botro, and I live at 120 Cedar Lane, directly across the street from this proposal. And we've lived in this house for 41 years, and it's a small neighborhood, really, of 8 tract houses, 4 on one side of the street, 4 on the other, that were built in 1948. All of these houses, without exception, since that time, have all expanded, and various remodels have gone out, but never up. So this is the first time that something like this is in this little group of 8 houses. And I wanted to call your attention to a couple of letters that we received. The first letter from the applicant that was sent to the neighborhood said, "Our desire is to enhance the value of our home in the neighborhood. But we feel that this massive construction that they're proposing really devalues our home rather than increases the value." So I would say, what would happen if our home was in the back and we went up and disturbed their view? How would they react to that? The second letter was from the contractor that was sent to the neighborhood, and it refers to the fact that that this is trying to explain that this is a 2-story, but it really isn't a 2-story. I guess it falls under the 2-story definition because of a height increase of more than 5 feet. And this 500 feet of attic space is really indicated as being for a storage facility. And we don't feel that a storage facility in a residential neighborhood is appropriate. Also, they're going to take out all the windows and raise the pitch of the roof, and there's really seismic concerns, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of structural issues involved with this. The plans are kind of difficult to understand, and so what I had to do was make a couple of overlays. And which is the best way to show this? I took these right off the plans, and you can see that that this is overlaid the existing right on top of the proposed. So you can see the new roof line, which is raised significantly. And this is a very great concern because it blocks our view completely. The second one I did was a photograph, and I took the elevation that's proposed from the plans and scaled it down to match on the photograph, and you can see how massive it is compared to the existing house. So of these 8 houses on our street in this particular neighborhood, none have gone up. The applicant did not erect story poles. We did talk about that at some time so the neighbors could see actually what was going on there. So I don't know if that's going to happen or what, but that's of concern. So in summary, the proposal is out of scale and incompatible with the neighborhood. It's mansionization, pure and simple. It's enormous in appearance and not aesthetically pleasing, and you have your guidelines, D and F, where you use that word aesthetically pleasing. It takes away our views of the ocean and the islands, and we ask that you deny conceptual approval and direct that the roof line remains where it is, not raise the roof.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Marion, followed by Prim Krish. And if Prim can come up here in the front and be the next speaker, I appreciate that. Do you have anything new to add?
I'm Marion Botro, and I have lived...
A little closer to the microphone just so we can pick that.
I'm Marion Botro. I have lived at 120 Cedar Lane for more than 41 years. I thank the board for the opportunity to speak in regards to the 119 Cedar Lane remodel project. For the most part, the Cedar Lane neighborhood from Cedar Lane on up are made up of modest single-story homes. To allow the massiveness of this proposed remodel would be likened to one person in the audience standing up through a whole performance of an opera. And this is a quotation from Santa Barbara's Pearl Chase. I'm sure some of you remember her. She said this in regards to a massive project downtown. Another point I would like to make is that Cedar Lane is in the high-risk fire area. An attic full of stuff would make a whale of a bonfire if it should catch on fire, and it would jeopardize the houses around it. This addition to 119 Cedar Lane would be totally incompatible with our neighborhood. Therefore, I would respectfully request that your board would deny this two-story addition for storage purposes and keep the existing roof line. Thank you.
Thank you. Prim, and followed by N. Nicholas.
I want to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to speak. My name is Prem Krish, and I live at 56 La Vista Grande. And I represent myself and my wife, Akila, who's sitting there. We both object to the proposed design, and I'd like to review the reasons for our objection. I have a one-page summary here, which I'd like to pass out to the board, if I may.
Yeah.
Just copies. Essentially, there are 4 points I'd like to go over. The first point has to do with incompatible architectural style. Now, I'd like to point out that just like California has microclimates and wine growers know all about that, so does Santa Barbara have micro neighborhoods. And so you might find a sharp pitched roof, 2-story thing on, 2 streets away, but it may not be pertinent to the micro neighborhood. Now, this neighborhood consists of single-story California ranches, typically with low roof pitch and understated character. I have some photographs of homes which are in the immediate surrounding. These are about two homes to either side of the proposed one and either side of the street. So that micro neighborhood really consists of, as I said, low roof pitch, understated character, and the project as proposed, as you can see in this sketch, has multiple unnecessary, non-functional gables. There are 6 gables in that front elevation, and very high roof pitch, which is, it's a nice design. I have nothing against the design, but it is incompatible with that micro neighborhood. The second thing I want to talk about is incompatible scale and proportion. First off, they're proposing a 9-foot increase in the roof height. Essentially, it more than doubles the roof visibility or the roof plate to ridge height, currently 168 inches going to 172 inches. That is a factor of 2.5. So when you look at this home and you take a look at what it would look like, I'd like to show you this particular, if you look at that, that is looking at the home from the intersection of Cedar and La Vista Grande, and you can see how that roof just juts out into the sky and has a huge visual impact. I have a couple more pictures of proposed, superimposed on what's there. And the house would actually loom over its neighbors and would really just be out of scale. Third point is the blockage of visual vistas. We have mountain vistas from homes on La Vista Grande and ocean vistas from Cedar and Rosemary. Our neighborhood is a walking neighborhood. People are out there all the time. They're walking their dogs. They're stretching their legs. They're out there. People live on they walk around a lot. And from various vantage points on Cedar and Rosemary and La Vista Grande, you can see over the house to the mountains. You can see over the house to the ocean, the sky. A structure of this sort would really destroy the view vistas from many vantage points. Finally, I'd like to also address the potential loss of privacy. We do not understand the rationale for such a massive attic space. The design has the potential for converting the second story into living space. I'm not saying there's anything planned, but the potential does exist to add an interior stairway and a few dormer windows, and you now have something that would seriously compromise the privacy of all the immediate neighbors. Those are the points I'd like to make, and we would really like to see compatible architecture, no increase in the roof ridge height, and the preservation of neighborhood view vistas.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Next will be N. Nicholas.
E. Nichols.
E. N.
for
E.
Andrew.
I'm sorry. And that's my last
I've been
speaker
here
slip.
before and tried very hard to get your help and never had one bit of help. Somehow, you should come to my house and see what they built below it and what they did to all the neighbors. Anyway, I'm here for Cedar Lane. So good evening, gentlemen and ladies. Regarding 119 Cedar Lane request for a permit to add 513 plus square feet for a second story. This will render this property not compatible in this area. All existing homes are small, single-family, one-story homes with views on small lots. Neighbors purchased homes with views and wish to keep them. Properties with no views lose value, considerable value. I know, because I was sold real estate here for 25 years. So we request that this permit should be denied.
Thank you.
Please think deeply, because that's our neighborhood. We're going to live there. Okay?
Okay. And with that, I
And
will...
the people across the street, the gentleman that came, he will have absolutely no view. But the people who are doing this will have views. 119 Cedar Lane. That's not fair.
Thank you. And with that, I will go to Tony. Is there any additional public comment?
We have a number of additional letters, and we
Most of them have been
passed
emailed to
these
us.
along, forwarded them to you, or scanned them and emailed them to you. But I'll just acknowledge them. Letters from Cynthia James, Norma Jung Johan at 190 Cedar Lane, John Thomas, Brooke Ashley, Janet and Richard Mitchell, Richard and Diane Powell, Patty Hauptman, Larry and Donna Mason, Connie and John Brunskill, Warren and Margaret Evans and Paula Westbury, and all the comments seem to echo those of what we've heard from the speakers.
Thank you. And does staff have any comments on this project? Then I'll return it to the board for questions of the applicant. Are there no questions?
Yeah, I have a question. On the existing south elevation, I see top of ridge den at 15.6.
Yeah, there's an
15.8.
That's incorrect. What it's actually 14. What is that? 14.8, and this one is 13.10. So
That's 14.8.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, those I believe are incorrect. That's north. It's all flip flop right now.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for the board members to ask of you? First, start with questions.
Are there any proposed access to this attic area?
No, at this point, I mean, we're unsure of where it was going to go. Realistically, it's not like it's going to be a giant storage area up there. I mean, their intent is to have volume ceiling in the living room. I mean, this is going to be a truss roof if it happens. I mean, we're going to have to kind of carve out some storage up there. It's not intended to be a massive storage area up there.
The current access to the attic, and it's not called an attic because it's only 4.5 feet, or it's not called a story, is through the closet in one of the bedrooms, and it will probably remain there. Through a ladder.
You know, Christmas tree decorations.
Exactly. If there's no more questions, I'll go to comments.
Did the owner wanted to? Do you want to make any comments or?
If you want to make something, yeah, all right. You have a comment to make, or?
Sure.
Yeah, he could have done it during your
sorry,
presentation.
Well, again, my name's Kurt Huffman at 119 Cedar and Pamela, and we certainly agree. That's one reason that we like the neighborhood was that's our nature is the small comfort. We don't need 10 bathrooms and 2. We thought about going up, but what we wanted to do, we had really the best intentions. We like the charm of the Rosemary Lane. The only reason it's considered a 500-foot addition is because we're going from 4.5 foot up. There's really no floor space added. It's simply taking what's already an attic and making the steeper pitch so we can just honestly have a little more storage space because the closets are so small. But we did use the SB guide, the architecture is one of our Bibles, and the other one we used the board guidelines extensively and made kind of those as our own guidelines. And also going to use the built green SB practices where applicable. We've arranged the design and construction to be more energy efficient. We're trying to go for something aesthetically appealing with a small home and just make the pitch like Rosemary Lane and some of the other charm of that cottage style. No change in the footprint, and we heard the neighbors' comments in writing and talked to them, and so we went back to the guidelines and made sure that we were complying with them, and again, that's all we ask is that we stayed within the guidelines, and we certainly respect our neighbors' opinions. They have every right to like the different styles. We're not particularly fond of some of their styles, but
Okay.
that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I have one question. The style that you came from, that's a style that you would like to have for this address. Have you looked at any other styles? Did you think of any other? You have a steep roof pitch and it has the straight gable ends. Did you review any that had any hips on the side, so like all 4 sides sloped instead of just the 2 sides sloped with the 2 side walls straight up and down?
The one thing that we looked at, but we understand that some others have been approved for 2-story in there, so we thought about just 2-story. But again, that seemed out of scope and style for the neighborhood, even though it had been approved. We thought we really felt like the Rosemary charm. We didn't want to copy a Moody's house. but we wanted to have something, so we like the cottage style, I guess.
Okay, thank you. So back to the board. Any comments pertaining to this project?
I guess since I'm not chairing, I can start off.
You betcha you can.
Well, I drove the street a couple of times, and I find Cedar Lane to be a very, very charming street. And I think that there is, excuse me, I'm used to having this on all the time. I felt that there's quite a consistency to the architectural style along the street, and it is, I think it would be defined as a very modest but charming California ranch type houses, shutters and little windows and low pitched roofs and fairly dense and close together. I don't think that if you took one of the nicest house on Cedar Lane, whatever that would be, and took it over to Rosemary Lane, I don't think I would like that. Rosemary Lane is a different street, and it's got a different style. There are a couple of houses that on Rosemary Lane that kind of look like they should be on Cedar Lane, and they're there, and we can't do anything about it. And I don't know what you people did when you looked at this one while I was gone, but it seems to me that the character and the compatibility that is in Cedar Lane now would be violated by this particular design. I just don't see this as fitting in, and I don't see the necessity for it. I don't think there's a problem with what you're doing in the plans. I think it's this roof structure and the multiple gables which lack the simplicity of the Cedar Lane neighborhood. And I think this fails the compatibility test for me, and maybe the size, bulk, and scale also, but it just doesn't get there. And I think that storage I recognize as a problem, and I think there probably is a way to solve that somehow, but I don't think that this is it. I couldn't support this.
Thank you. Another comment?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Echo a lot of Bill's comments. I wrote down as soon as I saw it, the house of many gables, because it has so many gables on the front that add to its size that it really could just be simplified greatly.
I think we're on. It's green.
And I thought it was just a too aggressive approach for the roof. I think you can get a little bit of the style that you're maybe wanting to get, and if this is a cottage style versus a ranch style, but I don't think you have to go to a 12 pitch to achieve that. And there's a lot of things that, if we're going to do that style, that need to be looked at as far as just quaint details. The way these windows and the plaster walls work, these are just way too thin corners for plaster to work correctly. The same thing with the garages. They're very, very tight in there and seem forced. So, but backing off and just looking at the overall roof and the gables, I couldn't support this design unless it was simplified and reduced in scale. So,
thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, well, I agree with Glenn totally. It's a very charming style. I think it could fit into the neighborhood if it were simplified as well, and that the whole roof pitch were brought down. It's the big mass in the back of the gables that's really the biggest issue for me. I think the gables are charming, personally, but it's just a little too high, too overwhelming.
Okay. Any other new comments? Gary?
Mr. Chair, I think it's a charming house, and I think it it does have quite a few gables to it, and it's a bit excessive. But I think that there is a project here, and something can be done. I think there needs to be some reduction. I think there needs to be some reduction of the roof pitch. I think I agree with Glenn on that. I think you need to review your fenestration on how close your windows are together and how close your doors and all of those items. There's some things that you need to look at. But I think that compatibility-wise, I think that this can work in the neighborhood. It just needs some refinement. It needs to be simplified, pretty much just like everyone has been saying.
I'll tag on to what Gary said in that there's a lot of effort and energy that was placed in here, and don't think that it's not all gone, because this can be modified, it can be simplified, it can be reduced, and a charming home can be placed here. I mean, because that's what you want. You want a charming home that belongs in the neighborhood. And this first pass was a little bit too austere or a little too stark. Aggressive. It's not aggressive in the square footage that you're asking for. It's maybe just, I want to say, in the starkness and in just the immediately in your face. And it's like, whoa, what's going on? And it's taking you a while to gather all the little pieces together.
Yep.
So it's our turn to talk. But what Gary says, there is an approvable project here. It just needs some more finesse. It needs to be worked at, massaged. And I would suggest driving around the San Roque area and taking a look at some of the older homes, and you can snapshot pictures, and I like this element and this element, and take a look at the detailing at this little point, and realize that some of these detailings are a little bit not resolved yet. And as the designer, you make the windows smaller or make this element larger, simplify these things, and reduce the home so it has a much more quieter appearance. The second thing that I would want to say, our board has seen lots of projects, whether it's a two-story or one-story, that unfortunately does block a portion of somebody's view, and that we don't, as a board, preserve private views. And so it's okay to do a higher roof pitch up to a point, and what we look at is what's excessive and what is what's unnecessary. And so reduce the roof pitch. We understand that the neighbor behind is going to lose some view, but what the neighborhood is going to gain in architectural quality, we offset. If there was an opportunity of clipping these edges, because that would also reduce the view impacts on the neighborhood. The garage needs some study, both the garage door and the gables, and what you can do with transportation. So with the project and all your dreams and your ideas, keep moving forward, because you have something here, and what you're asking for is modest, and throwing in that 500 square feet was a technicality, because
We understand.
Okay, good. So with that, should we have a motion? A motion for the applicant to redesign the building, reducing the overall bulk mass and scale, that's how we term it, and to study the garage doors, to simplify the design, and to study the historical details. And this would be returning back to full board when you're ready. So it's an indefinite continuance.
I certainly would support that motion if there was also something in there about compatibility with the neighborhood.
No.
Cedar Lane has a very strong character of its own. And this wants to be compatible with its neighbors.
So let's have a discussion about that, in the sense that going in more of the Tudor style is not compatible with the single-story ranch.
I would say Tudor is not compatible with that.
Any other board members can comment about that in this area? We need to give the applicant direction. Either he's fine going down this road, or he needs to come back with something that's more compatible with the other homes on Cedar Lane.
If I may, I don't mind the style personally. I think if it was made to be less busy, maybe there were only two gables in the front, that could work with the neighborhood. I think that as improvements happen in the neighborhood, I think people might go with more charming features on some of the homes. So I have a hard time saying, oh, geez, you can't do this particular style there. I think it could be quite nice if it were more modest.
Any other additional comments?
I always like to take Bill's, I think, experience and insight into account to see the bigger picture. So I would, since you are going to be studying it again, if you could look at the immediate neighborhood and see if you can fit yourselves in there, I think then you would really be in sync with our guidelines, and then we could support it more easily.
I can give you an example. We had a project earlier at like 6 Rosemary Lane, and it was built in the 1960s, and it's not compatible with the other houses in the neighborhood.
We're familiar.
We can see it.
So you can see it. So that's the knee-jerk reaction when people see your house and they see the other homes next to it. And so by simplifying it and by reducing it, the roof pitches and things, you're going to have something that's a little bit more blending in instead of more not belonging, which is, that's what we say about being compatible with the neighborhood and sensitive with the neighborhood. You're thinking? You need to be on the mic. I'm sorry.
We had a picture there that shows multiple variations in style. We didn't really see a dominant architectural style. There's 2-story homes. There's a massive Spanish style, towering down cedar. And it seems like most of the people who've gone in to remodel have either, have done something pretty radical. And so,
the challenge of designing in this town.
Mr. Chair, the thing is that I know the Spanish house you're talking about is down to the end on the Ocean side. When I saw that house, I thought, oh boy, that one slipped in before we were created. That's exactly the problem. That's exactly the reason this board was created by City Council, was because that Spanish house did not fit into Cedar Lane at all. And we love Spanish architecture, and up on the east side where there is a variety of architectural styles, there's a lot of leniency in whether you do Spanish or Tudor or whatever, modern, whatever. Cedar Lane is much more homogeneous, and I think that I'm not saying that I agree that I think Paul gave you good direction to restudy this, and I'm sure you can have something that you like that feels right for you, but it will still also feel right for the neighborhood. That's the key. That's the struggle in architecture, in compatibility in architecture. That's what you're struggling with. That's what makes it hard, and when you find the solution, you'll know it. When you see it, you'll know it. You'll know that this is right. Yeah. But this isn't right. You see, that's the thing.
So with the motion, add on the comment that the applicant is to review the architectural style and its compatibility with the neighborhood. And
I have a question.
Wait one moment. Let's have a first and a second. See if
I'll make such a motion.
Okay, and a second. Okay, under discussion.
Just as far as the modifications, I know, granted, with the restudy of this and whatnot, that things will be changing. But as far as increasing roof pitch in the setbacks, are we chasing something that is? It sounds like you guys would be willing to support something like that. But because we are talking about if we're going any increase in roof pitch, or granted even the 9-foot plate height rather than the 8, we're looking to get a modification of some sort. Is that seem like something that we're going to run into trouble with?
To give you the frank answer, it depends on what you're asking for. The project that was here just before you, they had like maybe 2.5 and 12 or 2 and 12, and they went to a 5 and 12. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's different than going from a 3 to 12 and a 12 and 12. So what they had was a house that was very linear and didn't have much architectural character. They picked up the roof, and they gave it some interest without being too aggressive on their pickup. So that's why the board was okay with having them increase this one portion over there. And it made it compatible, or it added to the charm of the neighborhood. One thing I didn't mention, that I had written down, it would be advantageous if you were to draw your property lines on these two sides so that we can see what the proximity is, and then you have a setback of X number of feet. You don't have to show that here, but we'll see it in the plan. But then that gives us an understanding of how, and what you will understand, because if your neighbor decides to build a gable end right here, you can understand the kind of shadow that it casts. And these are the things that we think about, both your home as well as the impact on the neighborhood. She was about ready, but you raised your hand.
I was just wondering, just to give us a little bit more specific guideline, are we allowed to raise the pitch somewhat?
You have to, it's going to be a modification if it incurs within the existing non-conforming section. And if it follows the quality of architecture and you're redoing the entire home in a new architectural theme, then it's deemed appropriate because it's part of the charm of the home. But the city might feel like we're being too lenient and they might not allow it. The staff hearing officer is the person who makes that decision. We're just looking at the architectural foo-foo and how cute the home is.
I didn't understand the answer.
So I'm going to say it's still a flip a coin 50-50. Does that help you?
Yeah.
Because the staff hearing officer makes the decision.
But would you support it?
I believe this board would support it provided it's not too aggressive.
Mr. Chair, it sounds like you want to continue it back here to see a design that you want to
We have
support
to.
before you send it to the staff here.
It's
a continuation back to this.
Indefinite continuance back to this full board.
I think what Paul was trying to say was that you modify this design and it comes back to this board, and the majority of the people on the board feel that we can make the findings, compatibility, etc. And the size, bulk, and scale is appropriate, and so on and so forth. We're going to send a recommendation to the staff hearing officer that a modification would be acceptable to us, and that's what you want to have in your pocket when you go to the modification hearing officer. If you go to the modification hearing officer with us saying we don't like what you're taking, then that's a tougher fight. Isn't that?
Yes, that's right.
Can I try again?
Okay, and then wrap it up because we're
Vegetation. Most of the gables are hidden with vegetation and trees, but that's irrelevant. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so
All right, so with that, let's call for a vote. Or any more discussion from the board members?
I'm sorry, can I ask one thing?
From the board members. Be quick.
Indefinitely versus, can we set a date?
Let's make it indefinite.
Okay.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You've got some fun work to redesign, and when you get it redesigned, maybe meet with the neighbors, and then put yourself on the board, on the agenda. And I'd like to thank the neighbors for coming. It's an important part of the process.
What's that?